introduce one of the most articulate and energetic grassroots activists that I have met. This lady is a ball of energy. Terri Hall. Terri grew up in the Silicon Valley.
Don't hold it against me.
Where she earned a BA in English from UCLA. She also was drawn into political science and how the media impacts the public policy that we deal with. She and her husband found their niche as business owners and came to Texas to plant their roots as quickly as they could. As a taxpayer in San Antonio, Terri founded Texans for Toll-Free Highways in 2005 when she learned that TxDOT was to convert her only access into San Antonio, Highway 281, into a tollway, a double tax. When she saw that this shift to tolling our existing freeways was happening nationwide, she started a nonprofit legislative advocacy group in 2007 called Texans Uniting for Reform and Freedom, or TURF. See their logo up there. Terri has worked as a citizen activist for 7 sessions of the Texas Legislature. She has spoke before 12,000 people at a rally in Washington, D.C. She has organized marches on Austin. She has spoke at national conferences and also has appeared on The Lou Dobbs Show, CNN's American Morning, MSNBC, and Fox News nationally. She has also done radio shows here in Texas. You may have picked some of her shows up as she was being interviewed. Additionally, she has written for The Examiner, Watchdog.org, Texas Scorecard, Public Policy Foundations, and has had many columns published by news outlets nationwide. TURF has been a driving force in the repeal of the Trans-Texas Corridor, defeated bad legislation that had provisions for horrific runaway taxation, and she has spoken out against using federal stimulus money to build toll roads, which is a triple tax to us, the taxpayers, and awakened Texas to the coming leveraged debt infrastructure bubble, which would set the stage for massive taxpayer bailouts. In addition to all of the above, Terri is a mom, and most importantly, a mom of 10 children. And she homeschools those children. To pay attention to politics and what's happening at the state level, I have no clue. She makes me feel very lazy. Please give a warm welcome to this amazing ball of energy who has traveled all the way from San Antonio and navigated around 2 accidents while she was doing it. So she was going to arrive late, but she made it. Please welcome Terri Hall.
All right, y'all, I'm so grateful to be here. You know, a lot of people like Tony ask, how on earth do you have time to do all this? And I say, hey, look, homeschooling 10 kids is a cakewalk. It's like a vacation compared to herding politicians and getting them to do the right thing. Do I hear an amen? Yeah. That's right. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about where we're at. Some of you might have heard my talks before. So I'm trying to mostly focus on what happened this last legislative session in 2019. And really, this has become a permanent tax, hasn't it? Yes. Have you seen the tolls come off much? And now I-30 was the only example we really have here in the DFW area, really statewide, for a long time. For a long time. Because at the end of the day, it was a toll road, the Dallas-Fort Worth Turnpike. And then after years and years of paying off that debt, and I think they hung on to the toll a little beyond when the debt was paid off, but because of the activism of people like you, they finally made it a free interstate, which is now I-30. And I don't know if any of you know, but there was a bill that we killed this last session that would have turned I-30 back into a toll road and was going to put it in the hands of a private foreign corporation for 50 years. So that would be bad, right? And then I'm also going to talk with you a little bit about how this toll tool is being used by the left to take our freedom of travel away from us. So you're going to see a little bit about that too. But at the end of the day, we had a big sea change happen when Governor Abbott came into office. This is what he promised both on the campaign trail. He reiterated it in several of his State of the State addresses, and thanks to him, we have Prop 7, if you remember, on one of our constitutional amendment elections, that finally is dedicating some of our vehicle sales tax money and more of this vehicle severance tax money is finally going to our highway fund and getting some of that money back to our highway fund, which is really helping us get roads fixed without tolls, without raising our gas taxes. But here's what he promised. We're going to fix Texas roads without raising fees, taxes, tolls, and without more debt. So let's put that into what happened in the legislature this session, right? Our top 3 priorities have been for this last session, and some of these have been priorities for a while. It's kind of like property tax, right? It's the perennial priority, but very rarely gets done, at least done right. So our first is to take the toll off the road when it's paid for. That should be simple, right? This is like common sense 101. We should not continue to pay for a road that we've already paid for and retired the debt on. Second, broaden our toll collection reform. We did make a little progress in the 2017 session on the TxDOT sunset bill. And we basically turned all of our legislation into amendments and tacked them on. And got a lot of progress, but it only applied to TxDOT. So we were able to cap the fees at $48 a year, but it only applies to TxDOT toll roads, mostly near the Austin area, and so it does not apply to the North Texas Tollway Authority because it was not germane to the bill. If it doesn't relate to the bill, then they can call a point of order and kill the whole thing. So we had to accept limited reform because they wouldn't even hear our toll collection reform bill in committee at all. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And of course, we wanted to hold the line with Governor Abbott's promise that we weren't going to do any more toll roads moving forward. And that includes expanding our current systems. Because I don't know about you, but if you have a stretch of highway that's free to use now, if they come in and expand the Dallas Tollway or some other road, then they're going to infringe on what we've already built and paid for, or if they're expanding what's there now, that's a new tax, don't you think? They're now making you pay for even a longer stretch of road before you can experience your gas tax funded system. So toll cessation. This is taking the road, the toll off the road when it's paid for. Now, that may not sound like much, but it's actually super huge. What they've done is, in essence, take out a second mortgage on our highway system. And they've refinanced the toll debt, not just here in the North Texas area, but all over the systems in our state. And they've lumped all of the toll debt into a single financial bond. And now you have to pay off the entire $9.3 billion that's owed on all the North Texas tollways in order for you to get the toll off a single road. So ending system financing that basically raised the toll revenues of one road to go pay for and cover the sea of red ink on another toll road is how they get this whole thing to work, because really the only road that cash flows in the Dallas-Fort Worth area is, of course, the 121. They consider that the Street of Gold, is the one in Collin County, and then the Dallas North Tollway. Yeah. None of the other toll roads cash flow and actually collect enough tolls to pay for their retiring the debt. So what they do is they come in and lump it into a financial system and use that excess toll revenue on Dallas North Tollway. Instead of retiring the debt sooner and making the freeway sooner, they're using that excess revenue to go subsidize the rest of the system that's not working. And none of the toll systems around the state, as it currently stands today, can survive without this system financing. So of course, we've been making quick work of this for 4 or 5 sessions now to try and force the end to system financing and at least draw a line in the sand and say, moving forward, we're not going to add any more roads to these systems. If we're going to do a toll road, it has to stand on its own. And none of them do, so it basically means it's the end of toll roads. Well, here's what happened. How many of you know Representative Shaheen? You should, right? He's one of your Collin County representatives. He has carried our toll cessation bill for the last 2 sessions for us in the House. What happened, though, is that you got a token hearing way too late in the session for it to even make a difference, because you know how that goes. If you don't get your bill moving in a certain amount of time, it's just a matter of wasting the clock, because you're not going to get it to the floor vote and out of the Transportation Committee out of calendars committee and onto the floor vote when you have literally 5,000 bills going through the pipeline in 2 weeks at the end to ever have a prayer of passing. What the new committee chair did this time around, his name is Terri Hall, he's from the Valley, and because we had a new speaker, so we had new committee chairs, new leadership, and we had such high hopes for him. We're going to read a quote from him in a moment. But he decided to take all of my bills that I've been hounding him about the entire session and put them into a tolling subcommittee. Now, how many of you have ever gone to Austin during a session and kind of watched how the system works, or even from afar? Have you been paying attention at all about how the system works? Some of you are nodding your heads, okay. So you know that they put bills in subcommittees to die. Because now you have to get it out of subcommittee, then the full committee has to get it out, then it has to go to calendars committee, and then it has to go to the floor, then it has to go all the way over to the Senate and do the whole thing all over again. So subcommittee is where you basically pat somebody on the head, give them a token hearing, and say, good luck next time, Terry. Okay, so that's basically what happened. Now, on that bill, it was 100% in favor, and the only people that were against it were, of course, the toll entities themselves. So there was massive grassroots support behind this bill, but it went nowhere and never even got a hearing on the Senate side. Now, anyone hear of Chairman Robert Nichols before? He's more East Texas. He's not really this area. But at the end of the day, he's been a long time Senate Transportation Committee chair over on the Senate side. He is a former TxDOT commissioner. So need I say more about why our toll reform bills don't go anywhere? He actually was one of the, as a commissioner, was one of the authors of the bill that took me 6 sessions to get overturned to toll existing roads. So when he authors that kind of legislation, it's pretty tough to get our stuff through. So we're obviously up against David and Goliath kind of situation in a lot of these sessions in spite of the governor's help, or at least his quote that says we're not going to toll any more roads. I don't know how much he's actually helping us, but here's Canales, okay? So he never voted our stuff out of committee, but here's what he promised me when he ran for office. We always try and vet candidates. So if you have some candidates here tonight that would like to go through our process for our endorsement through our PAC, we would love to do that. And then TURP is a 501c4, and we also put out a voter guide. And so we try to vet as many candidates as we can. As you know, they don't really like to put their commitments in writing before they run for office, so that's why it's so critical that we do. But he actually wrote on his own, in between the lines on some stuff, this quote: I do not support any form of tolling. I do not like the concept or practice of building toll roads. I think it's highly unfair to the taxpayers to be burdened by toll roads, which has already been built and paid for by their tax dollars. It goes on more than this, but that's all I put out on this slide. But talk about a flip-flop. That's what we got from the chairman. So our second priority, of course, was trying to cap the toll fines and fees. How many of you have had toll fines added to your toll bills? Ooh. Okay, well, not too many, but I'll tell you what, millions of Texans have. And I'm not exaggerating when I say millions. TxDOT alone has put over 1 million Texans into collections over unpaid toll bills. And all of those have fines and fees attached to them. So it's very easy to get behind on a toll bill. Here's the #1 way that somebody gets entangled in this process. Your payment card attached to your toll tag expires for some reason. Sometimes it might be your bank saying, hey, we have a fraud alert, we're going to issue you a new card. Sometimes it takes 30 days, maybe 2 months to actually get all the entities you have auto pay up to snuff with your new card number, right? Now, what happens when Amazon or Netflix tries to pin your card and the payment doesn't go through? They immediately notify you, right? They don't put anything through until they say, hey, you need to change your payment card, we want your money. But guess what? Toll entities have absolutely no motivation for doing so, right? Because then they can just start cashing in, cha-ching, on late fees, fines, and every time that your toll tag gets pinged by those toll gantry cameras that are across all of these highways now, without a payment card attached to it, that's considered a toll violation. Now, it's not per trip. It's not, oh, I took the 121 today to work and another trip home. You would think, okay, maybe that's 2 transactions, right? No. It's considered every time you pass under a gantry is a toll transaction. So you might have 5 on the way to work, 5 on the way home. Guess how long it takes to become a habitual toll violator of 100 toll violations? Less than 30 days. So if you have your payment card expire, you don't even know that you've forgotten to let NTTA know about your expired card. They already start pinging you for all those toll violations, and guess what happens next? They can literally, when they ping your tag and there's nothing, there's no payment going through, and you have 100 toll violations, they send out the police to come get you. They can stop you on the side of the road and impound your car on the spot, literally leaving you on the side of the road. Did you know in Texas, if you have an unpaid toll bill, that you are considered a criminal in the eyes of the law? Now, we have mounds of civil rights law and constitutional law that shows that we are not a debtor's prison country. It's a violation of rights. But that's what we've turned this toll system into, a de facto debtor's prison. Most people have a payment on their car, right? So now they've impounded your car, you owe money on that car. You can't get to work to pay the bill that you owe for your toll bill. Now you owe $1,200, anywhere from $1,200 to $2,000 to get your car from being out of being impounded. So now you've got another couple of thousand on top of that. And they put a lien on your car, so now you can't get a new car loan to get a new car to get to work. And you see how this literally creates a cycle of unpayable debt for people. And remember, TxDOT alone has put over 1 million Texans into collections over this. That means they can impound those cars and they can block your vehicle registration of over 1 million just in the Austin area alone. Guess what the population, at least at the last census, was? It's going to change soon because it's 2020. What's the population of Austin? Anybody know? It's less than 1 million. That means the equivalent is a city the size of Austin or bigger has already been put in collections by a toll agency that only has 3 projects in the Austin area. So they are trapping virtually every driver that takes that road and putting them in collections over this. Excuse me, I'm saying 1 million, but it's 2 million Texans. This was from the KXAN investigative report that came out right ahead of one of our interim studies in between 2017 and 2019 sessions. So we did manage to get, in 2017, an amendment to that TxDOT sunset bill that gave us a foot in the door and some progress, at least on those 3 TxDOT toll projects. They capped the fines at $48 a year. That's like a big win. That's a big win. And then we actually got a vote in the House to decriminalize it. There was a big discussion about this, and of course Matt Rinaldi was fabulous on this. You guys all know him. And there were a lot of other guys that you don't normally expect to speak out against this, because they're kind of establishment people that love to raise your taxes all day long and spend lots of money. And even they were entrapped talking about their toll bills they had received and never got the opportunity to pay the bill without the fine attached. Some of them were put in collections before they ever had the opportunity to pay the original bill without being in collections. So they know it's a big problem. But guess what happened? In Senate Conference Committee, they put the criminal penalty back in and then capped it at $250 a year. So this is the kind of chicanery that happens in Austin. And every time we start to get 3 steps forward, it's 2 steps back. And so we're trying to get that original amendment, as it was written, decriminalizing, capping the fees at $48 a year. They can't impound your car. They can't make you a criminal and block your vehicle registration. We're trying to get that to apply to every toll entity across the state, whether it's NTTA, the Harris County Toll Authority, or any of these other entities. So here's what happened. Okay, Representative Hefner, who's East Texas, kind of near the Tyler area, Longview, he actually agreed to carry our bill. And then I found out later that he purposely deep-sixed the bill, only carried it to pat us on the head, and asked the committee chair not to have a hearing on the bill. And this is what I found out after I finally nailed down the chairman, because he knew I was never going to leave him alone until he gave me the real scoop on why he wasn't hearing my bill. It was because the author of the bill said, no, we don't want to hear that bill. And this is, remember, in the prior session, the House voted 136-3 for these toll collection reforms. There's massive support for it, but all it takes is 1 or 2 people, and your whole thing is deep-sixed. And the Senate version was carried by Senator Hall and Senator Goldhorst. Never even got heard because of good old Robert Nichols, the former TxDOT commissioner. And this is with 2 million people already put into collections just by TxDOT alone. So then we had a lot of bills that were trying to expand our toll systems and add new toll roads across our state. You might remember Prop 2 in the GOP primary. Remember how we have those questions on our GOP primary ballot? They don't have the effect of law, but it basically is a way to take an official poll of Republican voters and the issues that are their priorities, top priorities for them. It passed with over, I think it was like 90% of Republican voters said, yeah, we should have to have a vote on this before they toll these roads, right? Because right now what we're getting is taxation without representation. That's exactly what we've been getting for over a decade now. But in 2017, Governor Abbott and Governor Patrick put down a line in the sand when TxDOT was about to add over 20 more toll projects to their 10-year plan and said, no more toll roads moving forward. We're not doing this because of Abbott's promise. Well, the toll special interest decided, how can we get around this and still get by, make it sound conservative enough for all of these Republican lawmakers to get on board with us? They decided that they would try and take that Prop 2 language, which was very anti-toll, and at the end of the day, people don't want the toll roads, they're trying to find a way to stop them, right? They exploited that language to now try and say, well, here's our foot in the door. If we say, we'll let you contemplate having new toll roads and get around the governor's line in the sand by calling for a public vote on it. Now, we early on used to call for a public vote on toll roads for the same reason, because we thought we could stop toll roads by doing that. But what do you think is going to happen? What do you think happens with your school bond elections? What's been your experience? Even if you stop it once, how long before they come at you again for another bite of the apple? And they just keep bringing it over and over and over again until you cry uncle and they finally get it, right? Yep. Well, that's exactly what TxDOT and these toll authorities are going to do. If NTTA gets a no vote, they're just going to make sure that none of your roads ever get fixed until you capitulate and give in. And so that's why we felt like public vote is not the way to go, because there's no way for the voters to win ultimately, because there's no finality to that public vote. They can just never fix your project and keep coming back until they get it. So we had a group of Texas lawmakers, most of them from here in North Texas, promote this in between the session. They came at us at the GOP convention and tried to get some of our reforms. They co-opted, for instance, our toll collection reform, taking the toll off the road when it's paid for, and called it the Toll Payer Protection Act. I believe Tarrant County GOP was one of them that passed a resolution in favor of the Toll Payer Protection Act because it all sounded so good. So here's what it basically said. No government entity should construct a toll road without voter approval, which was basically the Prop 2 language, right? Toll bills must be transparent and accurate without exorbitant fees. They should all be capped. Prevent perpetual tolling. Tolls should come off the road when the project's paid back. No tolls on existing roads, which, mind you, we had just gotten at the session before, and with no help from this particular lobbyist. It was us, the grassroots, that got that after 5 sessions. And Prop 1 and Prop 7 should never be used to subsidize the tolling, which, again, where were they when we were way back in 2014 and again in 2015? Both those constitutional amendment elections were, that language was largely shaped by you and I, the grassroots, to make sure none of those new funds would go to toll roads. TxDOT has already diverted more than $10 billion of your gas tax money to subsidize toll roads all across the state of Texas. So you are being double taxed. Even if you never take one of these toll roads, your gas tax money went into building that road, and anyone who's taken it is being double taxed, and you're being taxed for a road you can't access without paying more. So all this sounds good, right? So Matt Krause filed a bill called the Toll Payer Protection Act and had some of these reforms in it, mostly the top 3. He's a Freedom Caucus member, and it was also originally co-authored by Jared Patterson and Scott Sanford, among others. And guess what? The very first thing, the very first line of the bill, when Matt handed it to me, my jaw's dropping, because the very first thing was authorizing unlimited public-private partnership toll roads. The most expensive way of doing toll roads. How many of you have had the misfortune of having to drive on the toll lanes on 635 or 820? Okay. You know what the cost of it, those managed lanes are in peak hours now? This is the foreign-owned toll roads. Same company, Centro from Spain. Anyone know? exceeds $3 a mile. $3 a mile. It is a 23-mile project. If you had to pay $3 a mile for 23, do the math. That's $75 to drive that toll road and pay up to that foreign company, and none of that money even stays in Texas or benefits a single road in our area. And these are the absolute worst kind of projects. And you'll be glad to know that $1 billion of your gas tax money subsidized those two projects. And in one case, 2/3, and in the other case, 3/4 of the money was also backed by federal TIFIA loans and private activity bonds that are federal programs backed by you and I, the federal taxpayer. So we backstop the loans. See where we're getting into this too big to fail? They make sure that no matter what, even if the traffic doesn't show up to pay that $3 a mile, we're on the hook if the road fails. That's what was at the top of this bill. We endorsed Jerry Patterson when he ran for office. I begged him, personally pleaded with him multiple times. I know there were others in this room that did the same, asked me to get his name off this bill. I had in writing that he was not for these types of contracts. But he wanted to stick with Matt instead of with the voters who put him there. Now, in the 11th hour, literally on the day the bill was up for a final vote in the House, it had already gotten out of committee, it was on the floor of the House, Jared calls me up, "Hey Terri, I'm taking my name off the bill. Doesn't have the votes to pass. Matt's going down." So only when the ship was sinking did he take his name off the bill. Okay, so I just want to be fully transparent about what actually went down. And that's just the first part of the bill. Then they weakened our toll cessation. And guess what? If TxDOT Commission, who's not elected by us, they're appointees, okay? If the TxDOT Commission decides that they wanted to expand the toll and keep the toll on a road, they could in 5-year increments and just keep tolling us. Does that sound like toll cessation? No. Sounds like toll continuation to me. That was the language in the bill. It of course had a public vote. But the way this public vote came up was going to work is, can you imagine trying to monitor public votes on 254 counties all across the state of Texas with all of these and trying to feed all of these all over the place? You talk about an impossible task for the grassroots, that would be it. We asked them to put some reforms in the bill. We asked them to put some things in there on the public-private partnerships that would take away the public subsidies, take away the loan guarantees, a lot of different things that we could have done to that bill to make it better. Matt Krause hands it to me 1 minute before his bill is laid out in committee after he promised that I would see the draft before that happened. And none of our reforms got put in the bill. Had a few of our toll collection reforms, but the best version was the standalone bill that we had that was Bob Hall's bill. Just to remind you what these public-private partnerships are, in Texas they call them CD8. It stands for Comprehensive Development Agreement. It's just another way of saying public-private partnership. It's just that's how it's listed in our transportation code, but it's the same thing. It basically privatizes and tolls our public infrastructure. And so what it does is it puts us on the hook for their debt, and guess who pays for, let's say, international drivers that come through Texas and take these roads from Mexico? Does TxDOT have an agreement with the Mexican government to be able to bill them? No. So we're paying for anyone from out of state or out of the country, we're paying those tolls to the private operator if they can't collect the toll. It charges toll rates, as you know, as we just talked about, $3 a mile. That'd be well over $30 to $40 a day. I took sort of the middle, like a 10 or 12 mile stretch would be $30 to $40 a day. But if you had to go the whole stretch at about $30 to $40 a day, $18,000 a year. That's worse than a property tax bill for a lot. And that's just one thing. That's not if you have husband and wife, or me with college kids. I mean, this adds up fast. It also allows private corporations the power to tax. Guess what that is? That's fascism. Then we have non-compete clauses, you'll love this, that prohibit the expansion of your free roads within a 5-mile radius of Centris Toll Road. So in an urban area, there's a lot of highways in a 5-mile radius. And all those projects are in their non-compete agreement. You can't have expansion of those roads for 50 years. And on the State Highway 130 contract, which by the way, I'm one of the few people that actually has read all the contracts because your elected officials don't know what's in them. So I tell them what's in them, and I usually tell the press too. Speed limits on the free routes were manipulated. So the adjacent highway that was the existing road that came in through Lockhart in Guadalupe County and Caldwell County, it was 183, good barbecue, if anyone's been down there. And it was 65-mile-an-hour road, free road. They turned that into a permanent frontage road with stoplights and lowered the speed limit to 55 and increased the speed limit on Centra's State Highway 130 toll road at the time to 80 miles an hour. They got a change in state law to increase our state speed limit beyond what it was, all the way up to 85 miles per hour, excuse me, to 85. And guess why? Because in this little addenda to the big, long 1,200-page contract at the very end, Centra put in a financial incentive to TxDOT, and for every 5 miles per hour over 55 that they put the speed limit at, they got more and more money and a payoff from the private operator. So they went all the way and paid it to the 85 miles per hour max, which is the fastest road in the country, and they got $100 million from Centra for that. That road actually went bankrupt in less than 3 years. We were promised that if that road ever went under, that we would get it back as a free road, free and clear of any debt, and it was going to be a freeway. That didn't happen. Went to bankruptcy court, got taken over by a company that specializes in distressed assets, had never run a road in its life. There's nothing about roads at all. All the debt was wiped out, and they still get to collect tolls on that road until 2048. We never got it back. Broken promises. These are bad deals, and they go for 50 years with an option to continue after that. So this was promoted by a good buddy of Matt Krause. You'll start to see the connection here, because David White is not only a taxpayer-funded lobbyist hired by the city of Austin to try and get a private toll road agreement for I-35, which we all agree is an absolute nightmare, and it needs to be fixed. But they've been fighting with us over toll or not toll for 15 years now. If they would just have funded it years ago and not tried to keep tolling it, it would have been done a long time ago. But they're trying to privatize and toll it. They hired David White's firm, Public Blueprint, and came in and did this. Well, his connection to Krause is it's his first chief of staff. He used to work for Krause. They're good buddies. So I guess that's what good buddies do for each other. Carry bad bills. So thankfully, we killed House Bill 1951 with no help from some of these other folks, of course. He had to withdraw his bill right before it was coming up for a floor vote because of lack of support. And he gave 2 reasons why he was pulling his bill. One, he said, was us, and the other was a latecomer who helped us kill the bill, which was actually Associated General Contractors Heavy Highway Division. Those are your Texas contractors who don't take kindly to foreign companies getting sweetheart deals. So sometimes, a friend of your enemy is your friend or something like that, right? So it got a hearing not only in the toll subcommittee. What happened to my bill in the subcommittee? Went there to die. His bill came out of the subcommittee, got voted out by the main committee, and made it to the floor. But the only thing that saved us was it got withdrawn because he didn't have enough support for the bill. He knew he didn't have the votes, and he didn't want it to go down in flames and really embarrass himself. So the bad bills littered the whole session. There were 10 bills to privatize and toll a whole host of Texas roads. Most of them had about 20 projects listed in them. The same 20 that Abbott and Patrick stopped in 2017. And they were the same 20 that were in the 2015 session, the 2013 session. It goes back all the way. They never stopped. They never stopped. They had 14 bills to raise your fees, your vehicle registration fees. 14 of them. One would have doubled the gas tax in Texas from 20 cents a gallon to 40 cents a gallon. We had 2 bills that were going to gut the reforms we had just gotten in the prior session that Bob Hall helped us pass that would keep them from tolling existing free roads. Then we had dozens more that were growing government with unelected transit and toll agencies. There was one that was trying to create a mega regional toll entity in the middle Rio Grande Valley with 7 counties. There's no traffic there. I'm sitting here like scratching my head. What do you want to create a toll authority for in the middle of the, I couldn't believe it. Expanding the powers of eminent domain and their ability to issue bond debt. And the governor said, not just no tolls. He also said not raising fees, not raising your taxes, and no more bond debt. Did they care? look at all the bills that were filed. And a lot of them by Republicans. Now, a fair amount were by Democrats, but a lot were by Republicans. So the grassroots push managed to stop all 5 of the public-private partnership bills that got a hearing. They kind of tended to consolidate all the bad bills, and they ended up with 5 of them instead of 14. Thankfully, none of them got heard or made it out of the Senate Transportation Committee. In all, we stopped every attempt to expand toll roads in Texas, but it was not easy. They don't care about little, homes to walk. It's because of all of you that stand with me that makes me sort of scary sometimes. So thankfully, we got all that stopped. A few glimmers of hope so that you're not totally depressed when you leave is the ban on red light camera tickets. And it's no longer a criminal offense. By the way, some of the cities that got grandfathered in that can still issue you a ticket, guess what? There's no criminal penalty assigned to it anymore. So it's optional for you to pay that. So you don't have to pay. House Bill 347 by Phil King ended tiered annexation. Do you remember that? We got the good annexation bill that passed finally after lots of grassroots involvement in 2017. Came back in 2019, and what they did was they made it so that the large cities had to come to you for a vote before they would annex you. But anyone in a small city or county we had to go door to door and get these huge petitions done and all of that. So they finally have it so that now a city cannot annex you without a public vote. So that's good. And then this was the one glimmer of hope from Jared Patterson. He had a toll transparency bill that also Senator Paxton helped pass. And this is to force toll agencies to reveal their debt and where your money's going, because that's one of the problems that we have when we keep trying to bring up our toll cessation bill. Most of our elected officials are like a mile wide and only an inch deep. They really don't get into the weeds on a whole lot of anything. And even most of the transportation committee members don't know anything about where all this money's been going. So this is hopefully going to help us drill down into it so that we can start picking it apart and eventually stop the bloodletting of adding more and more toll roads to their system and making it impossible to pay it off. And the other thing they keep trying to do, by the way, is refinance the debt and keep pushing out the payoff date so that it's never paid for. And so our bill takes away their ability to do that. And then a Zerwas-Hall bill, of course, it repealed the driver responsibility program. Now, I don't know if any of you have heard of that. Some of the judges in the room probably know all about it because it was a disaster for the same reason that the unpaid toll bills become a problem. It basically created like a debtor's prison of debt that these people could never get out of. And most of them was for drunk driving and DUIs and things like that. So granted, there's obviously issues there. But at the end of the day, over 1 million Texans had lost their driver's license and were driving illegally all over our roads to try and get to work and still pay these debts off, but had to do it illegally. So we're trying to get these debts paid in a more responsible way. So that was another good one. They've been trying to repeal the DRP for at least 4 sessions. So that was a good piece. So our top reforms at the end of the day all need to be passed. All of our energy ended up being in stopping all of that stuff. So that is our mission for next session. And the flyer that we have that's going to be handed around, maybe just one for a couple. I didn't bring a ton. I should have brought one. We'll give you those action items. But you want to know what's happening around here, right? The Transportation Commission. Now remember, the quote we started with. The governor promised what? No more tolls. But what did his commission just approve last fall? An expansion of I-35 where? Denton County to widen I-35 and add frontage lanes from I-35 West to the I-35 East split north of Cook County. And the I-35 East expansion from Dallas to Denton between 635 South up to Denton County line. They are adding managed toll lanes for $596,000, good grief. And some of that, they're trying to say that that's not all state money, but I'm still trying to drill into the numbers to get, it's harder to get than you realize. But anyway, I'm trying to make sure it's not gas tax money because we passed a bill that made it, if they used any state funds, they had to pay it back. Because up until that bill got passed in 2017, it was just a grant. They'd give away the gas tax money and they'd never have to pay any of it back. So it turned into lots of double and triple taxation. The bottom line, Abbott's excuse was your local elected officials asked for it. They showed up to the commission and begged, pretty please, can we please have our toll road? And he gave in. So any appearance of local support is enough to make the governor waffle. And of course, excuses. TxDOT claims that, oh, this project was already in the long-range plan prior to the non-toll environment that the governor promised. But I'm here to tell you, every urban area and all of your highway expansion projects are in a long-range plan for 20 some odd years before they actually get let. They call it a letting. So before they ever get built, they've already been in a plan for a good long while. Well, those projects have been in there since 2003, 2005. So if Abbott really meant that if it was already in a plan, it's allowed to be grandfathered, that means everything can be told. So he kind of picks and chooses what he means when he means it. And that's very disappointing when we were made a promise. To me, any road that wasn't told when he came into office shouldn't be told, as long as he's in office. So we have a problem. The toll projects that were shelved in 2017, his commission chair kept saying, just a few months ago, we are in a non-toll environment. We're not going to toll any more roads. In November 2017, Abbott and Patrick halted those 20 toll projects in their 10-year plan. But there's all these grandfathered toll projects that they keep letting through if your local elected officials show up and beg for it. County judges, mayors, you name it. You can go back to the commission tapes and watch it. So he's weakening on other issues, Abbott on gun control, red flag laws, taxes. He's trying to raise our sales tax during the session. So we don't really know where he stands on some of these things. Here was the headline just a little while back. On this Texas toll road, drivers want to know why they're paying $15 for 5 miles. This is when we found out that that's what the congestion pricing on the Northern Express actually came to during peak hours. That's the new form of tolling. That's why they call them managed lanes now, where they put the toll lanes in the middle of your existing freeway, right? Well, the bureaucrats love it and the left loves it because they think they can manage your morning commute. And they literally say this, and this is all on the record all over the place, that the purpose of the toll is to keep cars out of the lane so that buses can get where they need to go on time. That's what our district engineer in San Antonio said was the purpose of the congestion pricing. The other reason they say is we want to guarantee that those who pay the toll can always have a 50 mile per hour speed. If too many cars get in the lane, then they have to increase the price of the toll to purposely knock cars out so that those who are uber wealthy can just keep paying and getting the fast ride while everybody else is stuck in traffic. So congestion pricing is absolute runaway taxation out of control. So this Gordon Dixon article talked about the higher toll prices are a signal that gridlock ahead on the toll-free main lanes is really bad, and that paying a higher toll is better than being stuck in traffic for an hour or more. If you're paying $3 a mile to use that toll road, you know the traffic's bad on the free road. I call it the misery index. Whenever they turn up the misery index, your price of your toll is going to go up with it. Then in the Dallas Morning News, this was just in November of last year, it says, when will the toll roads in North Texas be paid off? Well, don't we all want to know that, right? The cost. Now this is what I would call the cheap toll road. This was the North Texas Tollway Authority road, not the Centra privatized toll road. And it was $6 one way to take the Dallas North Tollway to avoid the congested 75, which we probably all took to get here, right? This is creating multi-generational debt. This is quoted right from the article. Tolls on the Dallas-Fort Worth Turnpike, which is now a free road, Interstate 30, lasted for 20 years, from 1957 to 77. The Dallas North Tollway opened in 87, but the tolls are still there. Now, I cracked up because they said in the article 50 years later, but it hasn't been 50 years since 87. Anyway, they don't really have to, but I just quoted them. According to the North Texas Transportation Authority, it's no longer a statewide policy to deem roads toll-free after they've been paid off. And I'm like, well, that's what the toll bureaucrat says, but we the taxpayers might have something to say about that. It's perpetual debt. The NTTA owes $9.3 billion on your toll system here, the entire system of roads. And their debt's no longer calculated based on just the Dallas North Tollway or 121 on its own. They put everything into a system, and the payoff date now is not until 2052, and they have no plans to ever remove those tolls, ever. And this is what they said, if anything, tolls will keep going up rather than go away. According to the NTTA website, toll rate increases every year 2.75% in and it's compounded. Now that's just the publicly operated toll roads. You know, on the congestion pricing that are on the central operated toll roads, it can be virtually anything. Sky's the limit on how high that toll rate goes up during peak hours. Well, we get as bad as Virginia. Tolls have hit nearly $50 to go 10 miles on I-66 in Virginia into DC during the morning commute. The headline, toll price of express lanes in Washington, D.C. spiked to $46 on a Tuesday morning commute. How much does it cost to get from DC from I-66? It reached nearly $50 from a photo that a motorist captured on Twitter. Here's where we get into the left's agenda of using tolls as a means of control. Okay? So in Fairfax County, Virginia, anyone know about Fairfax County, Virginia? A little bit of gun control maybe going on right there right now. They are now issuing $94 tickets if you try and take a back road through the neighborhoods to avoid paying the tolls on I-66. Do you remember when Rick Perry was doing this whole rollout of all of his toll roads way back in the early 2000s? And he promised over and over, you're always going to have a free rate. You don't have to take the toll roads. Well, not when we have this going on. Now, do you think what happens in Virginia doesn't eventually make its way here? Virginia and Florida were the two model states that they based our legislation on here in Texas. It's only a matter of time before this kind of stuff starts happening. The failure to obey a highway sign is what they call the ticket. And the penalty on drivers who turn onto the neighborhood road without a permit that's issued to you by the government. During designated times, these permits are only granted to the owners of the homes. What if you need a caregiver to come to your house? What if you want to have a bridge club or a Bible study? How are you going to get people into your neighborhood without a $94 ticket? This is a full-on assault of our freedom, really to exist and move around. Then this was recently filed, like just a few weeks ago, the Safe Drivers Act in the U.S. Senate. This would create a real-time national driver surveillance program that would allow law enforcement to know anything and everything about you at the click of a button. Okay? And according to the Salem News, this bill would give law enforcement real-time alerts of every single driver. The Massachusetts governor, who loves this by the way, is for the creation of this nationwide system to alert states when one of their drivers incurs a violation anyplace else. They want to cash in on tickets. If you're a resident of Texas and you're in Louisiana, they want to be able to ticket you and pay. And it's going to trigger a suspension in another jurisdiction. This national driver surveillance system would link core highway safety databases both within a state and from state to state. Okay, so there's nowhere to hide. And it would contain your medical, roadway, and economic data. All in one big, nanny-state, big government database. By storing and tracking everything a motorist has ever been involved with, we are basically turning every driver into some kind of a criminal.
Except illegals.
Now, we laugh when we see this, but have you ever heard of social scoring? They do it in China. This is what this is about. You see the score? Your onboard driving systems can already telegraph this. All the government has to do is tap into it. And they'll start saying, oh, this driver's distracted, he's showing anger, and the mouth is open, so we really got to get him. And they'll start deploying law enforcement to come after people for anger driving, I guess. But that's where this is headed. Then there's communities now without cars. In Arizona, a new development is banning residents from bringing cars with them. If you're going to buy a house in this community, Cul-de-sac Tempe, 1,000-person rental development, just broke ground, won't allow residents' personal cars to be driven there or parked anywhere on site. They want you out of your cars. This is anti-car. The developer negotiated its way out of the required parking spots, which is usually one spot per unit, by prioritizing a host of other transportation options like, I'm sure you'll all be glad to hear this, scooters, bikes, and rideshare. Isn't that how you want to get around? Now, there's another way that we're seeing a huge assault on cars and your personal freedom to travel solo in your own car. And it's called the Climate Adaptation Plan. Now, they may call it something different, but Fort Worth is about to close in on theirs. City of Austin, Dallas, Houston, all of our major cities are doing this. And guess why? They actually had this in the beginning opening document for the San Antonio Climate Adaptation Plan, which we fought for over a year, and the city council just passed after their crazy mayor down there got reelected. So they said that this was a commitment by over 400 mayors to uphold the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement, to thumb their nose at the president getting us out of the Paris Agreement. They're just going to enact all those same policies at the local level. And that's exactly what San Antonio did. It mandates the entire city of San Antonio become carbon neutral by 2050. The mitigation strategies, and I'm going to show you where, would end personal vehicular travel and force the masses to be dependent on hiring a rideshare or utilize walking, biking, or mass transit to get around. That's on page 38 of the document. On number 9 in that section is carbon-free vehicles. They want to transition everyone to a carbon-free vehicle, implementing strategies to accelerate the adoption of electric or other carbon-free personal vehicles with 100% penetration by 2050. Number 10, vehicle miles traveled. They want to reduce your vehicle miles traveled per person throughout the city, prioritizing the reduction of those traveled in single occupancy vehicles. So we won the toll fight in San Antonio, at least for now. We killed every single one of their toll projects, and at one point there were 52 different segments of freeway in San Antonio that they were going to come to put toll on. So we killed them all through the years. But guess what? They're still going to put managed lanes on them. They won't be tolled, but they're going to be bus-only lanes and HOV lanes. It's the same thing. Any kind of restricted lane is a way to restrict your travel, whether it's through money or other types of restrictions. They are coming after our freedom to travel. So then, connectivity and walkability. How many of you love that? You know, Mayor Betsy over there in Fort Worth, she sure loves those bike lanes. They want to accelerate connectivity and walkability by prioritizing the funding and construction of infrastructure. I just crack up when they call this infrastructure. I'm like, okay, it's pea gravel. It's called like a little walkway. You know, pedestrian walkways. They want to promote micro-mobility modes, such as biking and walking and other human-powered transportation, with an emphasis on the protection of vulnerable road users. They want mobility to be a service, not personal private ownership of your vehicle. They want you to have to hire it as a service. They want to utilize smart city and big data solutions to promote mobility as a service and reduce greenhouse gas impacts on their transportation solutions. Then you've got Washington, D.C. that's pushing a congestion tax. Do you remember hearing about them in New York trying to do that in Manhattan? To get into and out of Manhattan, you were going to have to pay a huge congestion tax to go in to the city, enter the city, and much less park there. Okay, but this was a big anti-car push. Now they pushed it back. Now D.C. is spending $500,000 to study congestion pricing due July 1st of this year, bolstering their efforts to impose a toll on city streets in New York City. They're hoping to raise millions with the new charge. The tax would hit most of the people in the city, as 3 out of 4 workers in the district commute by auto. Only 14% use the metro or buses. And they've already been testing it by doing congestion pricing on your parking too. So now you're going to pay a premium to come park during peak hours and pay less during off-peak, which of course is when nobody needs to actually get there. And they're raising the prices dynamically is the advantage, they say, of congestion parking, highly effective in generating revenue. It says it right in the document. Raising the cost to park at peak periods, in their pilot program, they got $10,000 a week on just a couple meters. So how are we doing here at the state level, to bring it back after I totally depressed you? Our report card for the 86th legislative session. So as a whole, our legislators got a big fat F. 67% of legislators got a failing grade this time around. Compare that to 57% were considered friendly in the 85th session, just a session before. And they all earned A's or B's for the most part. 60% almost had earned A's or B's. Only 19% of lawmakers actually voted with us this time. Now what happened there? That's like a complete dramatic shift. 73% of the House earned F's. Do we have a problem in the Texas House, folks? Yeah. We keep hearing this over and over and over again. You better make sure that whoever you elect, your House members, are going to lock down and be conservative and do what you want. What did the Frisco lawmakers earn? Well, Angela Paxton got an A+. She had a good voting record, but guess what? She did author a bill that we fought vehemently and finally kept it in committee and never got out of committee. She wants digital license plates. Okay, you want to think about what the impact of that is. Any hacker can then change their license plate. How do we track down criminals if they can in real time, with the right hacking equipment, change their license plate number on the fly? Then you also have the fact that this was considered what most of us call a vendor bill. It was a special interest bill by the digital license plate guys. Can you say, I mean, how many times does your smartphone, your computer, and everything else in your life crash, right? You're gonna have the same problem with digital license plates versus a piece of tin that costs pennies on the dollar for the state to produce. We're talking about massive maintenance costs. And then not to mention all kinds of safety issues that can come into play with this. So we were very unhappy with her about that bill. We begged her to stop and pull back, and she did, and we had to defeat it in both the House and the Senate. And then Jane Nelson also got good grades this time around. Justin Holland got a C-. Now you'll notice on some of these others, their percentage doesn't add up to what their grade is, and there's a reason for that. So for instance, Matt Shaheen actually got really a C. He got 78% with us, but he ended up with a B because he co-authored our bills and some of our amendments. Scott Sanford, however, got an F. For the first time ever, Scott Sanford got an F from us. Never, ever, ever before has he ever had a voting record that bad. Now, Jared came up with an A, but look at his percentage, 86%. But he was one of the original co-authors of that untold Protection Act and only came off that bill when it was already going down. But he did. So, here's what you can do to get involved, is we want you to review our report card and hold your elected officials accountable. We also really want you to get on our text message alert system, particularly with the GOP convention coming up, since a lot of you are big Republican activists, precinct chairs, and hopefully delegates to the state convention. We have had a full assault from special interests every single 2-year cycle that wants to gut our very strongly anti-toll platform. We're also going to be putting out in just a couple weeks sample resolutions you can bring to your precinct convention, your Senate district convention, and hopefully it makes their way up to the state convention. Now, any of you who are in or part of the Republican Party apparatus, we've had this problem at least the last 2 conventions, where your precinct convention people are directed to and your Senate district convention people are being told, if it's already in the platform, don't pass a resolution or address resolutions when it's already in the platform. Well, we argue, how are the people at the state level going to know what they want to keep in or what people want to take out if you don't let us speak through resolutions going through the process? And I feel like it's a way to leave us completely empty-handed when I go before the committee and say, no, the people want this. They want their toll fines capped. They want the toll to come off the road and paid for. We also added in 4 years ago now, not only do we not want our existing lanes tolled, we don't want restricted lanes, dedicated bus lanes, dedicated bike lanes, anything that restricts our freedom to travel on lanes to be paid for. Do I hear an amen? This is ridiculous. So they're going to come after all that language. We also have something in there, if you can believe it. The flavor of the month for a while was a transportation reinvestment zone. Anyone ever heard of those? You're in local government, you've heard of them. They wanted to designate a zone around a certain highway, a transportation reinvestment zone, and use your property tax appraisal increases to subsidize the failing toll road that can't pay for itself for the toll users. So we have that in there too. And so we have all kinds of stuff in there because these are all the abuses that were taking place. It sounds crazy we have to throw all this stuff in there. And of course we have something in there that says we don't want you to hand over our public highways to these private foreign entities and these sweetheart deals. But I guarantee they're going to come after that again. They're going to try and weaken it. And they tried to put it in a public vote last time, and we finally argued it down, but it's hard to argue against a public vote because it's democracy in action, right? But we managed to stop that, thanks to Senator Hall, who came in and backed me up right at the right moment. But the reason why we'd love to be able to keep you connected for the text alerts is you all know if you've been to a convention how fast things can happen. How quickly a platform committee might be taking a vote on something, or you can see that the debate's not going your way, and I need people in the room right away. If you're there, we want you to come in and join us. So right now, pull out your smartphone. Where the phone number goes, you put in the short code 94253, and then the part where you actually text and type, words, put in no toll Texas. It doesn't have to be all capital. It's just all one word, no spaces. No toll Texas. And that will get you on our text message alert system. And I don't abuse it. It's just you and I talking. No one else gets access to any of my stuff. And we'd love for you to sign up for our email alert. And our clipboard is going around. We would love for you to stay in touch so you can be engaged on this issue, because you guys up here especially are getting just inundated with all of this bad policy. You're seeing it. You live it every day. The average person in Denton County is paying $200 to $300 a month in tolls just to get it. That is a tax, and it's an unaccountable tax in the hands of unelected bureaucrats where law right now says they can keep it in place forever. Now, how many of you know that we have a Texas constitutional protection against perpetuities? Anyone ever read our 400-page plus Constitution lately? We have the longest state constitution ever, so I can see why you don't know. But it is in Article 1, Section 26. It's at the very beginning. So that means the founders of our state thought this was really important. And it has a protection in there against perpetuities and monopolies. What did we give Centra on the Northern Express and on the LBJ? We gave them a 15-year monopoly. And what are we giving North Texas Tollway Authority and all these other toll entities? Permanent taxation, perpetuities, a perpetual ability to toll us with no accountability. Did any of you ever remember giving a green light on all of these roads? Taxing? No. Did any of us ever have a say at all? No. So we have got to get this done next time around. And we're going to do that by trying to get these candidates, good candidates elected, and hold them accountable when they stray. And we have a grassroots action center on our website at texasturf.org. And you can go there and get white papers, you can download all kinds of information. I literally list for every session we've ever been active, all the good bills, all the bad bills, who authored them, I give you a link to where to go, why it's bad or why it's good, and what the various reps have done. We have our report cards on there too. So we want to get you all involved and engaged. So with that, do you all have any questions? I know I've buried you with lots of information, so I'm sure you have some questions. If you're wondering what toll-free highways is, by the way, we also have Texans for Toll-Free Highways. That's our political action committee. And that can actually, through that, we can endorse candidates and get involved in campaigns and things. TURF is a 501c4, so we've got two organizations. If what we accept, we will get more of. And if we are silent, that's approval. So I need your help. I know a lot of people that will come down to Austin. You know, you're in your state affairs committee, you have to sit there all day because there's a huge committee and there's lots of bills, and it's the property tax, and that's killing us too, and we've got to get this through, and then there's the immigration stuff, and there's the abortion stuff, and there's the education stuff. But I beg you, you will not be able to leave your driveway if we let these people take over our roads. They're going to take away our freedom to travel. And so to me, this is a liberty issue, and of course you can see it's a tax issue, and we would just love your help. So thank you so much for